Welcome to the channel. Welcome to today's run through of all the latest Manchester United news and transfer updates, keeping you right up to date with everything. I'm Jamie. Before we get into it, smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Let's jump straight into it. So let's kick off with all the incoming news regarding transfers. So firstly, shout out to Sekou Kone. So Sekou Kone fractured his eye socket in the collision and will have a scan this week to assess the extent of the damage to his orbital bone. Club insiders are not overly concerned about his spell on the sidelines, with one potential options for Kone to play in a face mask in a couple of weeks if he feels comfortable enough to do so. So that's the latest update. Obviously, that was quite a shock. He had to get taken to hospital. The game got abandoned off of the back of that as well. So always worrying as well. Broken his eye socket. God, that sounds very painful. But a couple of, maybe some time on the sidelines, but then it might be wear one of those protective masks. But wish him all the best and wish him a speedy recovery as well. But yeah, that sounds very painful. So just wanted to bring an update on Sekou Kone, his injury and his situation after that scare, I suppose, from the other day. Let's keep with the midfield and let's go through all the transfer rumours there. So Lucien Agoumé is one of the options Ineos has for the midfield at United. They are considering further options, but it is true that the Frenchman from Sevilla is highly valued. There have already been initial talks with his entourage. Now, that came from a journalist that's quite close to Seville and is apparently quite decent with their transfer news as well. There's been reposts online about Fabrizio Romano crediting him with a news story from a couple of years ago, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the David Ornstein of Sevilla, suggesting that United have made initial talks with Lucien Agoumé's entourage, which is interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting. There was another news story come out, though, from, again, another news outlet close to Sevilla, saying that Lucien Agoumé is Manchester United's priority target. Sevilla would be willing to sell him for close to £30 million. So I think this is the same outlet yesterday that saying United were wanting to inquire about 22 to 26 million pounds, but they were quoting figures more towards his release clause, which is 35 million pounds by all accounts, and now maybe a deal to be done around 30 million. I don't know what to make of these Agoume rumours, right? Because a lot of them are being pushed by outlets and journalists that are quite close to Sevilla. I am still yet to see, though, anybody of credibility like a Ornstein Romano, even like a Ben Jacobs or a Rob Dawson or anything like that, say anything around Lucien Agoumé, positive or negative, not even confirming the story, not denying the story neither as well, which does make me a little bit suspicious at this stage. I'd want to see some credibility. That's all I want, is just somebody so credible to either come out and dismiss it as bullshit or come out and say that actually it might be plausible and maybe we are interested or making some inquiries. At this moment in time, I don't necessarily trust the credibility of the sources of where the stories are coming from. I just want to get that confirmation by somebody a little bit more credible. But it's an interesting profile of player. I mean, for £30 million, it's not the most expensive, risk to take, I don't think, because there would maybe be sell-on value in the player as well. But we'll need to wait and see, because the belief is we might be waiting for Baleba, not getting anyone in the midfield and then just putting all our eggs in the Baleba basket next summer. But would Agoume be somebody that could, I think he could rotate in the future with Baleba as well, because if we're back in Europe next season, you're going to need, they're similar profiles of players, and so there could be something in that as well, where maybe we're just lining them up as something as a, someone to play alongside or play as a Baleba rotation option next summer. I don't know what to don't know quite how I feel about the stories regarding Agoume. Good profile of player, though. Is he worth it? Let me know in the comments. £30 million risk for Lucien Agoumé. I think he's actually he's statistically very good stats and data and numbers and stuff. Done, watched his highlights and stuff. Does look like a really, really good profile of player. Risk is obviously he's not Premier League proven, but it is what it is. But for £30 million, is he worth the risk? Give us your thoughts on that in the comments. Be interesting to hear what you've got to say regarding that later. Now, sticking with the midfield, Adrien Rabiot is set to be offered to Manchester United and several other clubs. However, United are prioritising a different profile, a defensive midfielder with greater intensity. That is why the club had targeted Carlos Baleba. That came from Fabrizio Romano, who's basically saying that Rabiot's fallen out with another club and has been told that he's up for sale, and his mum or his agent is set to offer his client around to other clubs. He can absolutely jog on. There was a report not long ago that his mum refused a deal when we wanted to sign Rabiot a few years ago under Eric Ten Hag, because she felt it insulting that we wanted to put the clause in his contract where there's pay reduces if we don't make Champions League football. So she better not come to United now with her begging bowl saying, "Oh, please, can you take my son now?" Because you can absolutely piss off if that was your stance the first time. She said, I think I read a report that was saying like she literally walked out of the negotiations or something because we wanted to put that penalty clause or that clause in their contracts that all players have, that we don't make Champions football, they take like a 25% pay cut, and she found it insulting. So, I'd find it insulting if you come with your begging bowl now to try and come to Man United. So I don't think we're going to go anywhere near Adrien Rabiot. Felt like a bit of a clickbait story, that, to be truthful with you, saying, linking United with his client. Everyone starts talking about him, puts his name out there as well. That's the sort of feeling I got regarding that. But give us your thoughts and feelings on that in the comments below. Now, the other midfielder we've been linked with is Hjulmand. So Manchester United are fearful that meeting the lofty demands of Portuguese heavyweights sporting for Morten Hjulmand in the closing stages of the summer transfer window could impact their plans to lure Brighton and Hove Albion star Carlos Baleba to Old Trafford next year. Man United have acknowledged there is a danger that spending big on Hjulmand, who enjoyed a productive 24-25 campaign, may harm their bid to land Baleba less than 12 months down the line due to the finances involved in both deals. Now, that came from Dean Jones. Effectively in the piece, what he was alluding to was the fact that United might not want to spend big on a midfielder this summer if it means taking away the budget that would be required to go for Carlos Baleba next summer, which is really interesting because we are starting to hear a few more stories and reports that maybe United are just gonna park the midfield, keep the money there available, and go all in for Carlos Baleba next summer. Because remember, we've already agreed, personal terms. Romano and Ornstein, everyone of that, saying that he wants to come to United as well. It's just obviously we don't have either the money or the time left in this transfer window to get that sort of deal done. And Brighton have basically said, look, he's not for sale. So we've maintained respect and not pushed through the deal. We're not trying to get the player to force a move. It's not going to turn into an Alexander Isak situation. Everything's still respectful. And it does appear that maybe we're going to park the midfielder this summer, keep the money there, and go all in for Carlos Baleba next summer, which I don't necessarily have a problem with, because there's an argument to and from, I think, for this, because obviously we do need a midfielder, and it will leave us a little bit light in midfield for this season. But, if we can play like we did against Arsenal with Casemiro and Bruno, they actually both surprised me in there, because we weren't overrun as much as what I was expecting. But obviously it's the first game of the season. I think as much as we were rusty, Arsenal, they're also rusty as well. We'll have to see how that materialises throughout the seasons. I do think it is still a risk, though, personally. But then on the flip side, how many times have we gone for like an alternative player that isn't the top target, spent a lot of money on them, and then we're stuck in a position where actually we would like to upgrade them in the future, but we can't because of the budget and the outlay. So there's an argument to say that actually, is getting Hjulmand, who's maybe not preferred as much as Carlos Baleba, for the price you're looking at getting him from Sporting, which is believed to be around £60 million or thereabouts. From going off, it's always mixed, the fees for players in reports, but that's probably the average I've seen, 50 to 60 million pounds on his price. That's a big outlay for somebody just for one season or maybe 2 seasons, and then you're back in the position of struggling to sell a player that you've paid a lot of money for and given a big contract to as well. So it is a really difficult situation, I think, for the club, because what is the right or wrong thing? Do we just park the midfield and go all in for Carlos Baleba if he is seen as the ideal, the dream target, everything like that Romano was saying regarding Baleba? Or do you spend money on somebody that's maybe not quite as good or doesn't have the characteristics that Baleba does, and then not go for him next summer. Like it's an odd one. So it seems at the minute it's maybe more towards we're just going to park the midfield, keep the money, and go in for Carlos Baleba unless an opportunity presents itself, unless it's somebody that we want, like Adam Morton, I think would be the other one maybe we would go for, because I think they would see, there was a report before saying that they would like Morton and Baleba as like a midfield partnership, but I can't see Adam Morton becoming available between now and the end of the transfer window, but stranger things have happened. But that's what it feels like, but reading between the lines, and definitely going off of that report as well from Dean Jones, who's a decent source as well. So but give us your thoughts on that in the comments below. Now, another potential priority signing, Senne Lammens. So although outgoings are a priority, Manchester United officials remain keen on bringing Senne Lammens in this summer. Ruben Amorim is a big admirer after providing the green light in July. The player wants the move. So Sean Connolly suggesting that while outgoings are a priority, United still remain keen on bringing in Senne Lammens as well, and that Amorim sees him, as potentially a priority to come in as well. But again, it's a weird one, the goalkeeper situation, because, we've made a loan offer for Emi Martinez, which suggests that we do want to go for a goalkeeper, but then we're also hearing that to sign a goalkeeper, we need to sell a goalkeeper, but nobody's buying our goalkeepers. It's just very strange, very weird. We're going to know in the next, 12 days, I think there is left of the transfer window, what's happening with the goalkeeper situation. But similar to the midfield, it does feel like we're not going to get anyone at the moment. Senne Lammens would be probably the most realistic one, but we might need to see some exits on the goalkeeper situation, or because it's relatively cheap deal, do they just do it anyway? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see what happens. Either way, though, Mike Keegan in the Daily Mail was saying that Manchester United are still seeking to strengthen their squad, but are only likely to do so if they complete more sales, having already spent around £200 million on a new look front line. So the Daily Mail was suggesting that we still do want to strengthen the squad, but we're only going to be doing it if we get some exits done, which is, dragging its heels at the moment. So that leads me nicely into all the exit news. So firstly, let's start with Xerxes. So 4 clubs have approached Manchester United in the last days to try to sign Joshua Xerxes, but the Dutch forward is considered non-transferable by Manchester United, which want to keep him. So Nico, following on from the stories I brought to you yesterday regarding Joshua Xerxes, and the club don't want to sell him. They're not going to sell Joshua Xerxes, especially not this late in the transfer window as well. They like him, they want to keep him, and I champion that as well, because we want characters and personality, and I like Joshua Xerxes because he came through adversity last season, which to me shows a hell of a lot about his character. The fact he got subbed and booed, and that horrific thing that happened against Newcastle, came back, put in some really good performances as well, and we actually missed him towards the end of the season as well. Like, how much of a miss was Xerxes towards the end of the year when he got injured? We were crying for him to be fit for the cup final. I know he came off the bench, and but obviously didn't have any minutes before that as well. So I do think there is quality in that type of personality to have around the place. So I like that from Joshua Xerxes, and I'm dead excited to see Xerxes, Cunha, and Mbeumo. I think that could be a really interesting front three to watch as well. I don't think we're going to necessarily do it all the time, but I'm really intrigued to see how that dynamic works as well, because I think Xerxes could be a really good facilitator for Cunha and Mbeumo with their movement and pace and stuff as well. But yeah, so Xerxes not going anywhere, in summary. Now let's move on to the Garnacho situation. Been loads going on regarding him over the last 24 hours. So Chelsea are advancing in club-to-club talks for Alejandro Garnacho. Deal underway. Excellent relationship between United and CEO Omar Barada and Chelsea hierarchy. Garnacho turned down approach from Bayern in the last 48 hours. So that came out yesterday from Fabrizio Romano, saying that he's turned down an offer from Bayern Munich because he wants to go to Chelsea, and Chelsea only. Like, at least he's consistent with his decision making off the pitch as well as on the pitch. Like, why would you refuse Bayern Munich? Like, no disrespect or anything, but you've got the opportunity to go to Bayern Munich, but you're still going to hold off to go to Chelsea when they've got about 20 wingers as well in front of you. Like, I don't know. Not our careers, not our choice to make, but that seems, nuts that that Bayern Munich came in for him and he said no. Romano said that a deal for Alejandro Garnacho is close. expectation for a here we go is soon. That was on his Instagram account. Mike Keegan said that Garnacho will only be allowed to leave if the price meets United's expectations, £50 million. The club believe all evidence points to their valuation being entirely fair and accurate. And again, we're referring to the Madueke, the Jamie Gittins fee, all of these players that have gone for around the 50 to 60 million pound mark. And we think it's fair value for Alejandro Garnacho, and I can see the argument for that. Obviously, the negative against that is that we've basically, told him to F off, which I do think devalues a player because that's been put out in the public domain. Everybody knows that, so I do think it weakens your negotiation stance a little bit. But he still should be getting maybe a fair price for Garnacho. Ben Jacobs was saying that Alejandro Garnacho turned down an approach from Bayern Munich today as he waits for Chelsea. Garnacho has already agreed terms. Man United insisting on £50 million, citing Madueke's 48 plus £4 million move to Arsenal as the valuation yardstick, and rightly so, because clubs will do exactly the same. If we go in for their players, they'll be like, well, you paid X amount for so-and-so, so we want X amount for our player. Look at Jared Brantford last summer when Everton were like, well, you paid 80 million for Maguire, so we want 80 million pounds from you, please. So this is exactly the game that other clubs play with us, so I don't mind United doing that. Jacob Steinberg, though, who's a good source for Chelsea, saying that Chelsea do not want to pay £50 million for Alejandro Garnacho. Sky Cabe is saying that Manchester United want £50 million for Alejandro Garnacho. Chelsea believe that Garnacho is worth about half the value that United are asking for. So Chelsea now value Garnacho at £25 million. They can absolutely jog on for that sort of price. I would thought it was insulting with it more bad when they were saying £30 million, but £25 million now, according to Sky Cabe. Fabrizio Romano has also come out in a video since saying, I've told you since July, my feeling is Garnacho will go to Chelsea. This will be a here we go, and I maintain my position in the background behind the scenes. This deal is advancing. Man United and Chelsea are talking. Man United and Chelsea have a very good relationship with CEO of Manchester United, Omar Brada, has a very good relationship with the hierarchy of Chelsea. On the transfer fee, there's a gap that they're talking in the last 48 hours. Bayern called Alejandro Garnacho's camp to understand the situation of Garnacho. The answer from Garnacho was, thanks, fantastic club, but I only want to go to Chelsea. So he's literally turned down a potential move to Bayern Munich to wait for Chelsea, but Chelsea and United still can't agree on a transfer fee. We're still holding firm on 50. They're now apparently, according to those reports, value him at half of that, so £25 million. There has been a report actually since, which I haven't done a slide for. It came out from Fabrizio Romano as well regarding Alejandro Garnacho. And what he said was Alejandro Garnacho only wants to sign for Chelsea or staying at Manchester United out the squad. He isn't scared by that. So again, Garnacho, trying to call our bluff, I suppose, in a way, saying, well, I'm not scared about not playing for a season. And I just think, well, if we're waiting for next summer to maybe move on now for transfers, let's just wait. Let's just wait it out and play that game personally. But we'll have to see. If we do want to get players in, then we do need to sell Garnacho because he's, the one that we're going to get the most cash from. But if United are no longer in a position where they're going to make any more signings, then maybe we can hold firm on the £50 million, price tag for Garnacho. And if a move doesn't materialise, then, it is what it is. Good luck, not being in the squad until January at the earliest as well, is what I say. But we'll have to see how it all plays out. Like I said, there's 12 days left, so we're going to know in the next couple of weeks what's going on with these exits and incomings and stuff. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments below. Now, let's move on to Rasmus Højlund. So Simon Jones in the Mail said that Newcastle are understood to have been approached about a possible move for Manchester United's Rasmus Højlund, but the idea has been dismissed. The Dane still has interest from Napoli, AC Milan, Fulham and Atalanta as United consider allowing him out on an initial loan. United still want a midfielder, but priority is sales at this stage. So Simon Jones in the Mail suggesting that Newcastle have been offered Rasmus Højlund, but they're not interested. There's still interest from the teams that I've bought that we all know about anyway, Napoli, Milan, Fulham and Atalanta. But interesting that we still want a midfielder, but priority is sales at this stage. So again, unless we get the money in, who knows what we're going to do in that situation, or are we just going to get the money in and then go for Carlos Baleba? Because you could get the cash in now and make a June offer for Carlos Baleba ahead of all the teams, because I know the competition's going to be higher possibly for Carlos Baleba next summer. But we've still, Liverpool got a jump on some transfers early this summer because they didn't spend anything the summer before. So they had effectively a whole transfer budget to go and spend before any other team, which is why they were able to spend the money that they have this summer as well. So could we do something like that where we save the money and do a deal in June before the PSR deadline and when other clubs have already spent their transfer budget as a way to ensure Baleba? Maybe we could be thinking about doing something like that, but who knows? Keeping with Højlund though, AC Milan are leaning towards inserting an obligation to buy clause for Rasmus Højlund. If they fail to land him, they will turn their attention to Conrad Harder. And that's interesting because it's always been believed it would be an option to buy, but we want an obligation to buy, which is better for us because we can write him off from a book value perspective then as well. So if they are leaning towards that now, maybe we'll get some movement on this deal as well. Because it is, I think AC Milan are in the race ahead of the race for Rasmus Højlund. They're their team with the most links towards him. It's just working out, I think, the price, the loan, the structure of the loan, the obligation, the option to buy, and all of that for Jadon. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments below. And let's go through the Sancho latest. So Damarcio said that Roma and Manchester United are pushing to close the transfer that would bring Jadon Sancho to Roma. The agreement between the clubs was reached for 19 million plus 5 million bonuses. However, the English player's okay to Roma is still missing. Roma will wait again, but not indefinitely. So Damarcio is saying that we've agreed a fee with Roma for Jadon Sancho. But obviously, as we know, over the last couple of days, Sancho has rejected that offer and doesn't want to go. But apparently, the report was yesterday, United have told Sancho basically that Roma is the only viable offer on the table and that he should accept it. But they're still working on the deal, and Roma are waiting, but they're not going to obviously wait forever for Jadon Sancho. So that could be one that's maybe back on the table, but we'll have to just wait and see how that one plays out. And then we've also had the Gazzetta saying that Sancho's agents are proving to be a problem due to them. The 25-year-old has not made a final decision about his future. The agents are said to be demanding very high commission from Roma, and this became clear during the Galerassi's talks. So interesting that they're suggesting that maybe it's something to do with the agency that's causing the problem and the agent demands rather than necessarily Jadon Sancho's demands. In the report, it said that AS Roma are willing to meet Jadon Sancho's wage demands of £7.8 million per year. However, his agent's request for high commissions remains an obstacle, the same issue that previously put off Juventus and Atletico Madrid. So is it as an agent problem with Jadon Sancho, or is it a wage problem? Who knows? Either way, it's his problem to try and sort out. Either way, if it's look at Benjamin Sesko's agent waived his commission or reduced his commission so that his client could get that move. So you would like to think if you're a good agency, you would maybe not be doing that. But we'll just have to wait and see how it plays out. It's so frustrating, the exits. I'm sick of getting wound up by them. So what will be. Either way, they're going to move and we're going to end up with loans or stuff like that with them, or they're going to stay and not play. That's the way it is, and it's really, it's the players themselves that will be harmed by that. So we'll just see how it all plays out. The worry is, though, is what Give Me Sport was saying, that Manchester United are becoming fearful that Sancho will choose to run down his contract instead of agreeing to leave on a permanent basis, which will have a negative impact on their ability to splash the cash in the final stages of the transfer window. So that is the worry with Jadon Sancho and all the other exits. But what will be regarding them. So hopefully we can get some movement soon. And then the final one is Antony. So reports from a Spanish outlet close to Betis have said that 2 proposals are on the table from Betis to Manchester United for Antony, either a loan plus obligation to buy next summer or a transfer for approximately half of his transfer fee. Decision remains pending. A definitive response. A definitive response. There is optimism a deal can be agreed. So again, it's just so annoying, isn't it? This has dragged on literally the entire summer. And we knew from the day one that teams where everyone really wanted to go, apart from Sancho's always been, it was always thought of Juventus. And then since then, it's gone really, really quiet until recently with the Roma offer. But we've known from day one that Betis want to go for Antony. We've known that Garnacho wanted to go to Chelsea, probably realistic, we're being honest with ourselves, since January. And they're all still at the club, and we're still waiting for offers, and we're still waiting for deals because they are refusing to go anywhere else. It's not like we aren't trying to sell these players or couldn't sell these players because we could. It's just the players themselves only want to go to specific clubs, and those clubs are playing the transfer game, which is so annoying, but it is what it is, and we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. But give us your thoughts and feelings on that in the comments below. Give us your thoughts on all the other topics discussed in today's video. That's you all up to date with the latest news and transfer updates. Smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. See you in the next one.